You are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
Come on, bitches. This is the Lineman Lounge. I am Mike. That is Evo. It is a Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we are live here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and we have got a bunch of shit to go over. Not a lot of football to talk about per se because there were only a couple of games. The Super Bowl is set, but we are going to go through. We are going to see where we got it right, where we got it wrong on the season. We tracked our bets all year. Now we're going to see, just for a little bit of fun, if we were able to pick the teams that were going to be good, those division winners. Maybe we got a couple of records right. I know there's going to be some fans that are not happy with how right we were. Talking to you Cowboys fans. There are going to be some people that are very happy that we got it wrong. Chargers fans. But my man, Evo, welcome in. Been a while. I know you were doing some more traveling. Hopefully all the travel went well. Everything went good with grandma. And, welcome back. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Yeah, look, I'm tired of driving to Colorado. I can tell you that much. But I'm getting efficient with it to the point that have you ever done a road trip so regularly that you really start to just get down like the rest stops that you always go to or anything?
So when I was going to school in Iowa, between Sioux City, Iowa, and Cheyenne, Wyoming, I knew that route like the back of my head. Now, granted, there's only one fucking route, and it's I-80. But I knew what stops I wanted to hit. I knew which gas stations I needed to hit. Kearney, Nebraska was always a stop for me.
It was weird to me because on a 12-hour ride, there's plenty of opportunity for gas stations, rest stops, things like that. I'm getting to the point now, it's like in the back of my head, I'm like, it feels like it's time to stop. And I happen to stop at the exact same gas stations. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, this obviously is meant to be because I'm hitting the same exact ones, things like that. Like, I don't know. That's also how I think I know that I'm doing the trip too much. It'll be nice to not be doing 12 hours there, 12 hours back, and so on and so forth. The pets will be happy because they're getting pissed without mom and dad being around. So, yeah, it was, as good of a weekend as it can be. Obviously, difficult going for funerals and whatnot and remembrances, but good overall. Happy to be back in Arizona. I wish I had the picture available, but every time that I arrived in Colorado Springs, it started snowing. And sure enough, arrived, started snowing. So I had to get back on a John Deere tractor and clear out the place of like 8 inches of snow. Got my, cowboy feels in riding around my John Deere tractor and everything. It was great. But yeah, happy to be back in nice weather and here doing the show, discussing football. It is somewhat somber because it is nearing the end of the season. But there's also happiness because it's almost the beginning of off season, which is fun.
And I got a lot of shit to go over this offseason, especially with the Browns having that number 2 pick. Offseason is going to be wild. But I'm glad the trip was good. Producer Amber here. She is from LaBarge, Wyoming. So, was that Western Wyoming? And then would go all the way out to Eastern Wyoming, which is a long fucking trip. If you've never been to Wyoming, it's one of the largest states in the country. Nobody fucking lives there. So I would understand why that's such a long trip. Why you always hit the same spots? Because there is not shit in Wyoming. Yeah. Loved it there, man. It's beautiful part of the country. We still have family that lives there. Shout out my mother-in-law actually for the 6 shirt. Boom. But yeah, so I'm glad you're home. Glad the trip was good. But like you said, we got some football to talk about. We got some games to recap. We got some things to recap from the season as a whole. Now, obviously, there's a lot of controversy that went into at least one of these games throughout the weekend. Do we dive right in and start the show off by giving it some vitriol and recapping these games? Or do we take a look back, give the people a little lube job into all the ways that we were right and wrong before we have to break their hearts and tell them the people that are playing in the Super Bowl that nobody wanted based on the matchups from this weekend?
I say we pull off the Band-Aid and go over these games because look, things have been going too good in the country. People are too happy right now. There is zero fighting or anything like that.
Clearly.
No politics, no nothing. Like we should, break the people down since they're so happy. Get off your high horse.
Get off of those high horses. Yep. All right, man. Let's talk about some football then, because we had a couple of decent games. One that kind of got away. We didn't get either one of these picks right. But Commanders take on the Eagles Sunday afternoon. And Saquon Barkley made me sound super fucking smart immediately in the first quarter. The Eagles go on and roll in this game. They win 55-23. Jaden Daniels plays okay, throws a pick, makes a couple of small errors, runs the ball well, but the Eagles were just too much, man. There was a lot of mistakes all over the place by damn near everybody but Jaden Daniels. That one pick, sure, that's on him, but it's late game situation. He has to make a play, has to kind of force it in there to try to get on the board. So it doesn't happen, comes away with the pick. And we got our guy, Vanilla Gorilla Eats, hopping in here. And one of the more funny things that has happened all football season, Luvu trying to go full Palomalu and time up the snap and fly over, which feels like the only way to stop the tush push. So we got tush push controversy and how ridiculous that play has become, ways that you can and can't defend it, because apparently the officials are allowed to just say, nope, fuck it, you guys, I don't like the way you're doing this. Put points on the board. There was some crazy shit that I didn't know about in this game. Where were you at? What when he said, if they don't knock it off, I'm going to give the other fucking team points? What was your initial reaction? I was like, can he do that? Like,
yeah, I was surprised because it's something that was new to me too. I would say probably for like 95% of football fans, it was a new statement. You watch Frankie Louvu jump the line once and it's funny. And then it happens again and it's like, oh, this is actually funny. But that got the wheels turning in my head of like, wait a second. This didn't give him a first down.
No,
It moved the
you
ball
do this in
forward the first
perpetuity.
time, but the second time, there's nowhere for the ball to go. So you could just really fuck the game up by continuing to do this. How do you stop that? And then sure enough, the ref comes in and he's been warned, and then they have another false or encroachment, and that's when it's been warned that we can, if this conduct continues, that we can take or just give the points to,
Yeah.
the opposite team, which I didn't go and do research, but I was like, I'm taken aback. Like, I didn't know you could just award points like that in the NFL. But I suppose it makes some sense in a specific situation like this, where there's no recourse otherwise to stop the defense from being penalized.
Just continue. Yeah,
So
continue to do. Lulu could have done it theoretically just over and over and over until you time it up right, and then you get the tackle for a loss.
imagine a running back or someone who wants to get a touchdown because that's going to put them over that like mark that they have in their contract to get $1 million. And this defender is like, no, I fucking hate this guy. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Give him the points, but it's not going to be a touchdown on your on your contract year or something like that. Like, that'd be funny. But yeah, look, news to me. As far as the tush push, I understand it's tough to defend, but you don't see every team in the NFL being able to do it. That means that it still is relatively unique. You do have certain teams that can do it, being Philadelphia Eagles, but
the Bills, except for
sometimes,
sometimes,
yeah. To me, I don't know that it needs to be removed from the game because it is something that is unique. And if your team is built to be able to do it, you built your roster to be able to do it. There's certain teams that can have a high-powered downfield passing attack because they have dumped money into receivers and quarterbacks that can do that sort of thing, and other teams that are more of a shorter West Coast system. It's almost the same thing where this team has dumped money into an offensive line and quarterback and running backs that can do this sort of thing. So I get the argument. It's frustrating because it is just so flip a switch effective. But we did see it stopped one time in this game. We did see the tush push stopped on a short drive, I believe, down by the end zone. That ultimately still resulted in a score. But there was a tush push that was stopped in this game. So it's not 100% effective, but it's very effective. But yeah, look, this game ultimately came down to turnovers. We say it all the time because it's so very true. The game was relatively very close and competitive, and then turnovers just became too much to overcome. And that's why Philly was able to run away with this and put up just a monster score, because by the time at the end of the game, Washington was so beaten, bruised, messed up from those turnovers that it was just insurmountable. And the writing was on the wall at that point, and Philly just kept ramming it down their throats, for lack of a better term. Like, Saquon really took over, had himself a hell of a game, and that Philly team looked unstoppable.
Yeah, and now I'm not a Commanders fan by any means, but I was kind of pulling for Jaden Daniels. I kind of hitched my wagon to him and saying that he was my QB1 in the preseason, or in the with all the draft and all that stuff. So it was tough to see them not perform very well, but he didn't perform bad. The guys around him performed pretty terribly. One guy in particular, Austin Eckler. Like, I'm not a Commanders fan, but I was even yelling like, what the fuck are you doing, Austin Eckler? I was screaming for him to be cut because he was not making any of the plays that you would expect him to make, or that it was almost like he didn't even understand his assignment at times. Getting no yards, critical fumble. Like, and I texted you when it happened. I was like, well, Eckler just fumbled away the game. Like, that was the end of the momentum.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Eckler obviously was such a fantastic back with the Chargers for years, got into a bit of contract dispute because he wanted more money, and then had just a really down year, goes to the Commanders, and he was going to play second fiddle to Ryan Robinson, but they really started to work him in as the season progressed along as part of a backfield, and he was looking pretty good this year. Even the previous game did a good job. It's just this one was an
It was
absolute,
the worst game I think I've seen a running back play in some time, dude. The
yeah, it
blitz
was rough.
pickups were terrible. Couldn't leak out of the backfield properly. Like leaking into coverage. Like it was bad, dude. It was really bad.
Yeah, not the time that you want to have one of those sorts of games. I don't know. It's tough to say that the pressure got to him because he's been in these sort of pressure situations before, playoff situations. Like it was just compounding problems there.
Saquon Barkley is a fucking dog. 3 touchdowns, awesome. I said on the last show that Saquon Barkley 2 touchdowns was almost, I felt like a lock. He cashed that in the first fucking quarter. Was able to get that third late in the game. Eagles got to get some young dudes in there. Will Shipley. Oh man, what a hell of an afternoon for that young man. Like rips off a huge run, gets his first touchdown. They get great defensive plays. Quinyon Mitchell finally gets his first interception of his NFL career. Like this team is really, really good. They're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, right after bringing up, we talk about the NFL honors and stuff like that, and who should get Rookie of the Year. And we just had discussed, like, oh, you got guys with stats and sacks, and Quinyon is having a phenomenal year, but he doesn't have the stats because they don't throw his way. Well, he got his stat in this game, got that interception. Good on Quinyon. I was a big fan of him in that draft process. And yeah, look, the Eagles just look really, really dominant. We're obviously going to talk about the big game, the Superb Owl, here in the future, not on this show necessarily, but the way that Saquon's playing, it feels like if you really just want to nail home a bet, anytime touchdown, Saquon is that, and just couple it with the something else a little bit to zhuzh it up.
Be careful with the language that you use when you get confident with a bet. More on that to come.
Yeah.
But all right, brother. So do you have anything else on this Eagles Commanders game? I mean, it felt like it was going to be a close game until turnovers just kind of stole the wind out of the Commander sails.
Yeah, it was disappointing because it didn't stay competitive until the end. That's realistically, as I think it's safe to say neither of us are fans of these teams. We have teams that we wanted to win over the weekend,
Right.
but we weren't necessarily a fan of the Commanders or the Eagles, but we had teams that we wanted to win and at least keep the game competitive as football fans until the end. And that, kind of getting away from the Commanders there at the end, that was disappointing to see. But at the end of the day, the better team here did win. The more deserving team because of their play did win, and Philadelphia Eagles will be the NFC's representative in the Super Bowl. Congrats to them on the NFC Championship.
Hell yeah, congrats to the Eagles. Roberto Gussolini is probably very, very happy.
Yeah, happy in a monotone voice.
Yeah. Apparently that's
Hooray.
Also how Malachi went up to Matthew after he broke his arm.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that poor kid. All right, man. Let's move on to the next game. And I feel bad for this kid as well. A little bit of it is his fault, but Josh Allen goes into Arrowhead and loses again, 29-32. Josh has a pretty decent day. 237, 2 touchdowns. Had quite a few turnover-worthy plays. None of them came back to bite him. However, when he finally makes that all-important throw that he made way too hard, it's dropped. Once again, we see a quarterback who's in that MVP conversation kind of work his way back, make the play that has to be made, and somebody else doesn't come through on the opposite end. Are the Bills and Josh Allen cursed? Are the Chiefs fucking cheating? Because Josh Allen very clearly made the line to gain for a first down. Shouldn't have turned the goddamn ball over to begin with. There's a lot of angles, a lot of things that we could talk about with this game. Where are you at? For me, I know firmly. I have watched so many angles, and I've been in so many discussions on Twitter about if he made the fucking line. Josh made the line. The official screwed up. They did not make it the play before. He was down before the line, but the sneak absolutely got across. I will never not think that. I feel bad that Josh had something that, once again, kind of out of his control, take a game away from him. Where are you at?
Yeah. Look, we've been very critical of the refs on this show. I think most people out there are critical of the officiating in the NFL, regardless of if you're a Chiefs fan or against the Chiefs or whatever. A lot of it does start to encapsulate itself around the Chiefs, and particularly Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
There wasn't anything necessarily egregious in this game, as far as I'm concerned, in favor of Mahomes too much. Not more than there is in any game for any quarterback, randomly, just poor officiating. But this game was officiated not to the best, not to the highest ability, not to AFC Championship standards. It just continues to bring to light that we are looking at a league that makes billions and billions, just fistfuls of dollars, that don't employ full-time refs, and we don't leverage the technologies available to modern society to ensure a clean game is run. We have all of the camera angles and all of the sky cams and cameras in pylons and all this shit. We've got the zebra technology to track players' speed and Amazon AWS and all this bullshit.
Yep.
And we can't put a chip in the ball to see where it's at in relation to those first down markers. Can't have any sort of officiating that's being held to a correct standard. There is always going to be some human error, and that's part of life and part of the game. But when you are putting these things up in 4K and sometimes 8K for the world to watch, it's an embarrassment to just be like, oh, well, I mean, we hope that you enjoyed watching us do a bad job in such high fidelity and from every angle possible. So yeah, that's tough. My thoughts on this game.
Did Josh make the line?
I'm not willing to say with 100% confidence yes.
Okay.
I think that there's a good possibility that he did. But the way that NFL rules unofficially go is, the call on the field is typically the call that stands. And
so that's something that we need to talk about, though, because the call on the field was not announced until they came back from a commercial break. So nobody fucking knew what the call was. The announcers didn't know what the call was. All that happened was the play is under further review. Commercial break. No ruling on the field. So they come back from the commercial break, and I wish I had my tinfoil hat because this is going to sound like a conspiracy, because it is. Whatever the call on the field was going to be when they got back from that commercial break is what it was going to stand as, because we're talking about where the line of gain is. It's almost never overturned.
Mm-hmm.
Why the fuck was that not announced before they just said they were going to review it? What are you reviewing? You have to make a call on the field before you can review it. So that's bullshit. They never should have even gone to review until we knew what the fuck the call on the field was, because we had one line judge come in well short and one line judge come in well over, coming from the opposite angles. So we never got a call. Nobody knows what the fuck it was. And then all of a sudden we come back from commercial break and the Chiefs stopped them. They're going to have the ball. It does not help the NFL with their whole narrative that they are catering to the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's very true. And look, I it feels like beating a dead horse going over this, but I don't know that we'll actually have ever get real answers on these sorts of things. I don't think that we're ever really going to know. It stinks to high hell, and it sucks because it feels like it's tarnishing the game that I love so much. And I know that it's so fixable. It's fixable. And that's the part that I get frustrated about. As a Bills fan, you get frustrated about the play and the call and feeling like you were cheated. As an NFL fan, you feel like everyone's being cheated from an authentic game. And that's like I've made those posts on the Facebook page. It's like the eye test, it does not look good. You get that feeling like usually if it looks like shit, smells like shit, it's probably shit, and that's kind of what's happening here. I'm not saying that other teams don't get preferential treatment or calls, that are bad against them, but you're talking about one of the most highly televised teams right now because of Patrick Mahomes, because of the legacy of the Chiefs, and whether it, you know, is a bias or not, it looks very, very conspicuous, like something shady's happening. And I understand that the Chiefs fans and stuff like that have to defend their team to an extent, but also, like, come on, come on with some of this stuff. It's getting egregious.
Yeah, I think fans they're tired of it. It's become obnoxious. Like the Chiefs are the new Patriots. People love to hate them, and their fan base is going to have to get used to that. I guess. I think. I'm not sure that the Chiefs fans are really ready for that because they are full throat like going. They are the new Patriots. If there's any option, any chance that you are saying potentially something negative about the Chiefs, ooh-wee, those people are insane at times. But you know what? They got to win. Doesn't matter how they got it, right? A win's a win.
Yeah.
Vin Diesel, baby. Family.
Yeah. It's
inch or mile.
The same thing that happened the week prior to the Ravens when they were playing the Bills, a drop by a tight end happened to the Bills. Dalton Kincaid unable to make that catch at the end. Absolutely should have made it. Catchable ball. Doesn't happen. It's difficult to watch. I still truly believe that the Bills are the better team, but that they have some sort of a crux against this Chiefs team. I know that we've talked about this before, not necessarily as much on the show, but I feel like the Bills are still lacking a true receiving option, true weapon out there for Josh Allen. You feel like he's able to operate with this sort of a group better, but I feel like when it has to come to the passing game, that he needs someone that is just a little bit more undeniable. But I don't know that that would ever truly hinder him having someone like if you plot a Justin Jefferson on his team. I think it makes things better for everybody.
That's the best receiver in the league. I mean, those are not dime a dozen. You can't just find that guy.
Okay, I think if you put a Lad McConkey on this team,
okay,
things dramatically change.
I don't know that Lad's all that different than Shakir in terms of the things that they do.
True, but Lad's just such a valuable receiving target. He's like a safety blanket, a Puka Nakua. Okay, he's not top.
He needs a guy that can win outside consistently because he doesn't have that.
Yeah, and they tried with Amari Cooper. The team knows that they need that, but even trading for Amari, like he didn't do much special for that team since being traded there. Keon Coleman, a rookie, had his ups and downs, but he's still not like what you would be considering like a scary threat. They've got two solid tight ends and Shakir, but they need something more dynamic in that receiving room, I think, to really kind of blow the top off here. So I think that's got to be a huge look for this Bills team going into the offseason. Where can we build in that sort of space in order to get better?
Devontae Adams becomes available.
I think Devontae's just going to retire.
You really?
Yeah. Yeah, and Devontae isn't the Devontae who he was before. Even, we have our talks about Aaron Rodgers and how bad he is and stuff like that. Like, Aaron's not good, but he can still throw the ball.
Right.
Like, and you're just not seeing special stuff like before. Like, these guys they're getting old, man. They're getting old.
They're getting old. We got a whole new generation of people coming in.
Yeah, and look, it's time. It's probably time for Devontae to go enjoy his Taco Bell and golf course inside of his house if it didn't burn down out in LA, wherever he lives.
Graydon asked me if Devontae actually has a Taco Bell inside of his house. So Taco Bell, you're doing an excellent job with the commercials.
Yeah.
Oh man, it sucks for the Bills. It sucks for Josh Allen. Chiefs move on. Chiefs with a chance at history, the three-peat. First ever three-peat. And they are...
Well, not if you listen to Packers fans.
No, fuck. Are we listening to Packers fans now?
I don't. They're just whiny, petulant children who are upset that they're not in the conversation. So suck on it, Packers fans.
Basically,
if you didn't win 3 Super Bowls in a row, it doesn't count. So there you go, Packers fans.
Listen, if we want to talk about championships, we could do that. I'm totally good with that. I'm a fucking Browns fan. That's the only championships I got.
Yeah. My Vikings are no Pete's.
Yeah. No Pete's.
So close all the time, but so far.
All right, man. So I don't got anything else on these games per se, but you know, we do got quite a few people in here right now. And we want to say thank you guys very much for rocking with us week in, week out. No matter where you're watching, if that's X, Facebook, or over there on the YouTube, we appreciate you guys. But if you are watching on X or Facebook, we'd appreciate it if you would take the time, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page. We have content that comes out every single day on the YouTube, whether that is a live video, a regular video, which we are starting to do more of, or shorts. There will be a piece of content that you find from the two dummy thick idiots you see here every single day. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. Evo, we ready to take a look back at the year that was, all the things that we thought that we would get right, a couple of things that we maybe knew we weren't going to fucking get right, but took a shot anyways.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's jump into it. Again, dummy thick idiots, pure conjecture. No one's ever going to get 100% right. But we take our shots.
We do take our shots. However, I'm going to give you guys a piece of advice for next year when we start doing the gambling again. And to do that, I'm going to have to go back to episode 183 of this show. It's where we actually went through and we made all of these predictions. And I'm going to say something in this clip that I'm going to caution you about after I play it for you.
So the Browns, Vegas does not have them as high of win totals as we're kind of looking here.
That's fine. Let me give you the odds right now on the Browns. So 8.5 over under from FanDuel. You can get that at minus 138. So you could hammer 9 wins for the Browns at minus 138. That feels like a really fucking easy bet to hit. And we're going to stop it right there. If you ever hear me say the fucking words, this is an easy bet, bet the opposite. Every single time. If you ever hear me say that, fade me. Because I am wrong basically every single time that I say that. And I had a good fucking year. As I'm going through and I see all of these numbers, like, oh man, I got this right and I got this right. If I said that it was an easy bet, you can guarantee that it fucking wasn't. You found the rhythm in the season and just said, nope, he said it was easy. The fucking opposite.
Yeah, started to notice these trends, and that's what you got to do when you're gambling. I picked up on that trend, and I was like, oh man, we got to fade here. We got to fade. I'd have it written down like this is where I'm going, and then we'd have the same thing, and you'd say those words. I'm like, got to flip. Got to do the flip.
Yeah. Don't ever bet what I say if I say it's an easy bet, because I'm almost certainly wrong.
Yeah.
No bets are easy. Vegas has $1 million chandeliers for a reason.
Absolutely. But hey, you want me to pull up those predictions from that video that we just watched so that way we can go over and look back at the year that was?
Hell yeah, let's do it, brother. I got my notes here as well. You got the PowerPoint there, so let's do it. Let's pull these bad boys up. We'll see what we got right, see what we got wrong. Starting off the rip here, man. AFC East. Vegas had the Bills 10.5. Evo, you had them at 10-7. So you were taking the under. I had them at 11-6. I would have been taking the over there. Bills on the year. Pretty good year. 13-4. They do win the division. I believe that we both had them as our division winners as well, even though I see that you have 10-7 for the Dolphins. Not a ton of surprises. We expected good things out of the Bills.
You had the Dolphins at 13-4.
I did, and I was super wrong. Super wrong. Tua getting hurt was a huge detriment to that team.
Yeah.
And my prediction.
But we both had him over the 9.5 there, which was not the case.
No, but you know what? You were right there on the Jets. The under on the Jets 9-8 for you. I was higher on the Jets. I had them at 11-6. But what they actually did was win 5 games. We drastically overestimated what we thought that team could do. Breece Hall was my my 1 of 1 fucking draft pick in fantasy, and it just never materialized. Aaron Rodgers torpedoed everything that the Jets could and should have been, in my opinion. And we absolutely did not get that one right at all.
Yep. But overall, at least for me, even though I did have the Dolphins going 10-7 there, I did get the order correct. So I'll take my victory lap on that one. But yeah, look, obviously predicting the records are extremely difficult here. And we were somewhat close on New England. We were relatively close on the Bills. I mean, but look, this is the way that this is shaked out. Not too shabby of a set of predictions here.
Yeah, not terrible. Injuries hurt the Dolphins.
Yeah.
The Jets stink. So, I mean, you're not going to get them all right.
Absolutely. All right. AFC North. Painful one for you. I know.
So I was fairly close on a lot of these, with the exception of the fucking Browns. Baltimore. I had them at 11-6. You had them at 12-5. I mean, they win 12 games. You're right on it there. We both were high on the Browns. We heard in that clip just before. I was high. You were also high on them. We were wrong as fuck. We shouldn't have been high on the Browns. The Bengals kind of found a way to claw their way back in late in the season. They get 9 wins. I got them exactly right, 9-8. You had them at 10-7. And then the Steelers, I had them at 9-8. You had them at 9-8. They get that extra win. They actually get 10 wins. So pretty close across the board, with the exception of the Browns. We both fucking missed on the Browns hard.
Yeah, if you flip-flop my Browns and Steelers spots here, I've got the division handled correctly. And look, this might be a bit of a blind spot for me. I hear a lot of Browns content. I see the good things. They had a good year last year with bad quarterback play. So why wouldn't you think that they could still do it better this year with possibly a better overall team? But yeah,
team was not better overall, though. I'll tell you that. We got old fast.
Yeah. O-line play, bad quarterback play. Look, we're going to get into a lot of, obviously, this Browns content over the offseason because, you're a big Browns fan. I am a passive Browns fan because of it. And we got to see how we can fix this franchise along with every other franchise in the NFL when we start going through offseason predictions and mock drafts and things like that. But look, the Bengals, I think that we really have to start planning for it. We have to pencil in like 3 to 4 losses in the first 5 to 6 weeks, and then go from there. Because if it wasn't for those beginning of the season woes, that Bengals team is really dynamic on offense, really competitive, and they're going to be a lot closer to the top of that AFC North. But until they start to prove us wrong with that, they're going to be sitting in this kind of middle of the pack situation. And it could get worse here real quick with the contract stuff. They're very possibly losing T. Higgins. I know that he's talked about being willing to come back for less money, but I don't think that he's going to be willing to take the sort of pay cut that's necessary in order to stay there.
Look, I did all I could for them. I gave them the TV that they can sell for Christmas. If they can't make it work, sucks to suck. I don't feel bad for anybody in this division. Fuck all of them, and especially the Bengals. Though the Bengals have been riding this high horse in it because they got Joe Burrow, but they're still not necessarily, winning all the time.
Alrighty. So, AFC West. AFC West is up next. And this is another one here that, I mean, we weren't super far off, except with those Chargers.
Yeah, we
Um,
missed the Chargers for sure.
yeah, and you were closer, but I mean,
Closer.
still pretty well off. Look, I expected a run first team to not be as powerful and as good as they were. I didn't expect Harbaugh to have that big of an impact that quick. I expected the year that they had this year to be more of the year that we would expect to see from them next year. But things accelerated dramatically. Things accelerated dramatically in the wrong direction for that Raiders team, who ultimately went 4-13. Now are on to a new head coach in Pete Carroll, which will be interesting. I've had conversations with our Raiders fans local down here about that, who have their thoughts on how things are going. Not conspiracy necessarily, because I think it's absolutely plausible, the stuff that they're talking about. And then the Broncos, it was all kind of hinging on being a Bo Lever for Bo Nix, whether or not you thought that they were going to be any good. And they turned out to have, one of the better defenses in the NFL. And Bo really flipped from those first couple games and became a pretty damn decent quarterback by the end of the year, getting them into the playoffs. Vegas had them very wrong. And we were obviously wrong about it as well. But this AFC West, it's not going to be as much of a cakewalk for this Chiefs team going forward.
Or so we would like to think. Now, you brought up the Chargers and kind of their style of play. We started to see a shift in the NFL this year, though. A lot of too high safety. I think there's an extra guy out of the box, a little more power running style. Could really be a conducive way to build your offense, especially if we're going to continue to see defenses go with too high and make quarterbacks play underneath. So we could see a nice little resurgence of the running back, which could obviously work out for the Chargers. It worked out for them well this year. They get 11 wins. I had them at 11 losses. The Chiefs, I mean, I was spot on. I had them at 14-3. I felt good about that one. The Broncos, better than I thought. The Raiders, well, tough year. No quarterback play. At least no consistent quarterback play. And, God, no fucking running game whatsoever for that Raiders team. They have got to find a way to address the running back room. This is a really nice draft for that, though. There's running backs all over this draft. You can get a starter in any fucking round.
I don't know I'm willing to go that far yet.
Bro,
But
there's at least 12.
It depends on what you consider a starter. There isn't not everyone's
not bell cows.
Back.
There's like fucking 3 to 5 dudes that I think could be bell cow backs. True, but there are 12 starters, NFL caliber starters in this draft. In my estimation.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of really good running back play that you'll be able to find. It's going to be interesting to see how the NFL attacks it because of the way that this year happened. The general malaise towards running backs and their contracts and whatnot. Sometimes in years when drafts are loaded at a certain position, they still go hot and heavy towards the top with them. Sometimes it gets spread out more evenly through the draft. It'll be really interesting to go over to look at all these positions. I'm into the running backs right now, but not anywhere near as deep as it's going to go because, like you said, there is a lot of guys here. We're looking 12, 15 plus that are going to be solid contributors probably pretty early on in their careers. And the Chargers, we talked about J.K. Dobbins. They brought this run game.
They'll probably be adding another back to complement him.
They absolutely probably will be because the one thing about J.K. Dobbins, and we saw it again this year, he's often injured, and this is a team that's going to want to focus on the run. Having 2 super solid running backs is not just like a blessing anymore. It is out there being shown by the Detroit Lions that this is a way to have an extremely competent offense, and that's going to continue. So that'll be interesting.
It also shields a quarterback that maybe gets a little out ahead of himself at times. You can slow him back down. You can slow Goff back down with that 2-headed rushing attack. would make a lot of sense for that very similar model with Herbert, who has moments where he will just go into fucking blow up mode. You'd want two guys to kind of help shoulder that load. But I mean, that was the AFC. Now, there were a couple of things that I said in that show that were not quite right. I said it was going to take 11-6 to get into the playoffs for the AFC. If not, 10-7 was able to make it. Steelers were able to make it. Chargers were able to make it at 10-7. Couple of places where we did get it right, though, is that the Steelers would just barely get there and kind of languish in hell, which is where I feel like the Steelers and their entire fan base feel like they are. They ended the season on a 4-game losing streak. And then in the playoffs, they got smacked. Tomlin is not going anywhere, it doesn't sound like. He is not retiring. He is not being traded. So they're just going to fucking run it back with Tomlin again. So we did get that right because that's kind of what the Steelers organization does.
Yeah. Hey, look, I feel for the Steelers fans. I'm a Tomlin fan. I loved him when he was with my Vikings. It does just kind of feel like that situation, almost like towards the end of Belichick's time in New England. Like you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It feels like even the last couple of years of Roethlisberger being on that Steelers team, that they were competitive, but like offensively, they just did not feel the same. They need a change of face there. They need a change. It's tough to say a change in culture because Tomlin has built a good culture there, and he is that kind of coaches or players coach. But it's not a culture that everyone likes. But like they have a culture there that works for them to an extent to still stay competitive, albeit milk toast when it comes to the record every year. It's gonna hurt to move on from Tomlin at some point, but I feel like it's going to benefit both sides, Tomlin and the team in the long run, because otherwise they're just going to be in this perpetual, spin cycle of mediocrity. And so
you would think that if somebody actually wanted to trade for Tomlin, that would be the best way to do it. But I remember long time ago, they were having those conversations about, will they trade Bill Cowher? There was no fucking shot that was ever going to happen. And looking at it, through the lens that I know now, of course that was never going to happen. Probably the same way it's never going to fucking happen with Tom. They will never trade him. It's going to be a mutually parting of ways. A decade from now, the way things have been going.
We say this, it seems like we keep saying this every year, but I think it truly depends on what his contract is. I don't know how many years he has left on his contract there with the Steelers, but I feel like if he is, whatever his current contract is probably his last one with the team. And from there, they will just decide to mutually part ways and move on to something new and fresh. And look, it might go drastically bad for the Steelers team when he leaves. But sometimes you need to have those bad dips in order to pick yourself back up and rebuild into something that's way better than where you were before. Otherwise, you do get stuck.
Yeah, I always think, it's never a football team that I think of who's stuck in that position. I always think of the Houston Rockets. They were perpetually stuck at being just kind of fucking all right. And Tracy McGrady, and then it happened with fucking James Harden. They were just they're all right. They'd win some games, but they could never compete. And it feels like that's exactly where the Steelers are at. And I love it. Just keep languishing in fucking purgatory. Be okay, and then fuck off in the playoffs. It's fantastic as a Browns fan.
Yep. All right. Moving on in the NFC, we have the NFC East. Philadelphia Eagles. I got them at 14-3. You had them at 16-1.
I did.
Right in between that. Way more than Vegas thought they were going to be, but they did end up getting the W here in this division.
Yeah, this division kind of made a lot of sense that that's the way it was going to go. I way undershot the Commanders. I really like Jaden Daniels. I loved Jaden Daniels when we did these predictions. I wasn't sure how the team would do as the season progressed. I started to be a huge fan of the way they were playing. Talked about them a ton at the end of the year. So I was super wrong on how good this team could actually be. And I'm totally cool with being super wrong there. I loved the Eagles. I thought that they would be fantastic. Actually, my pick for the NFC representation in the Super Bowl. So I feel good about my decision there. And then the Cowboys. Like, that's one of the teams that we buried. Didn't think they'd be very good. Turns out that we were both very right there. This is probably one of the divisions I did the best in. I mean, the Giants won 3 games. I had them at 2. The Cowboys won 7 games. I had them at 7. The Eagles won 14 games. I had them at 16. The only one that I really screwed the pooch on was the Commanders.
Yeah, and look, that's with the Commanders. I had them higher at that 8 and 9 level. I don't think anyone expected them to go out there and win 12 games, even with an uptick. And I was one of those people kind of banging the table through the offseason, even prior to this, saying, like, look at the cap space that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They already have some pieces in place. This could be one of the quicker turnaround teams, and I did not expect them to possibly get to the 12 wins. That's why I kind of held myself back of being like, this is going to be a team on the up and ups. It could be a new version of this, Houston Texans team that we saw out in the AFC. Like, but 8 and 9 is a reasonable idea of them being able to come back and be competitive, better than the 6.5 wins that Vegas had them at. And yeah, we were both, like, you were dead on with the Cowboys there being 7 and 10. I had them a little bit more 8 and 9 because I know that offense can be dangerous. But once Dak went down, that definitely changed things for that team, or did it? Since you got nearly the same sort of play out of your backup in Cooper Rush. And then this Giants team, we both had them 2 and 15. We both knew that they were probably going to be bad. Losing their main offensive target there in Saquon Barkley, and you see how impactful he can be to a team like that Philadelphia Eagles, running behind a really good offensive line with other weapons around him. So NFC East, we were relatively close on it. I just had to flip-flop those Cowboys and Commanders.
The Commanders going gangbusters it was wild. It was awesome to watch, though. I'm fucking super excited to continue to watch Jay Daniels play football.
Yep. All right, NFC North, my NFC North. I wasn't super far off on the actual ordering of the division here, other than the bottom. I was trying to hate on those Packers a little bit.
Yeah.
But I also didn't expect the Bears to just kind of be as bad as they were. I expected with the offensive talent and Caleb Williams there that we'd see a little bit of something, but I was bullish on that 9 and 8. And I guess I was bullish on the Vikings being, better than their Vegas prediction of 7 and 5. I also did not expect them to go off like they did. I had the crazy eyes from people saying that they were going to have a positive record here because Sam Darnold was going out there and playing. But
right,
damn, they looked pretty fucking good this year with a quarterback who obviously still has some questions about him, but earned himself a lot more money than he would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, he's going to earn himself a big fat payday. Be interesting to see where that payday is. A potential reunion with the Jets is being talked about, which I think is a terrible decision. But man, I like the way I evaluated this one. When I went through and I did my picks, 15 and 2 sounds outrageous for a team to make a prediction. Lions fucking hit it 15 and 2. Like, they got 15 wins. I hit the Packers dead on 11 and 6. I gave the Bears one extra game, but nobody saw your Vikings coming, man. I sure as fuck didn't. I went back and I was watching. I was trashing fucking Sam Darnold because, everybody was. He had not proven that he could do what he did this year. Now, clutch situations, there's still a lot to be desired, but he showed himself to be a capable starter. He's going to earn himself a lot of money, make me and a lot of people look kind of fucking stupid, even though I felt really good about the way I evaluated the rest of this group.
Yep. All righty, NFC South. Atlanta Falcons did not get the dub, and we both had them as the division winner here. You a lot more bullish on them than I was. I was actually pretty damn close. I had them at 9 and 8 here, and they were 8 and 9 by the end of the regular season. Tampa Bay, 10 and 7. I had them at 8 and 9. You had them at 9 and 8 there. Panthers, I had 5 wins and 12 losses. right on the dot. They weren't as bad as your 1-16 record, though they looked that way to begin the year, but they started to become that scrappy team towards the end, and we saw a little bit of good play out of Bryce Young. And then the Saints, I had them at 4-13, you had them at 5-12, and you were right on with that prediction. Both of us pretty darn close there, with them being well worse than their 7.5 win projection there from Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, so we were both on the unders on the Saints. Felt good about that. Panthers, listen, I thought they were going to be terrible, and for a long time they looked like they were going to be. And you brought it up; they got scrappy. I don't think there's a team that is probably more excited to go into the next year with their young quarterback than the Panthers are right now. They saw a lot of good stuff out of Bryce Young right there at the end of the season. I look like I could be super wrong on that as well. But man, you got to feel pretty good as a Panthers fan with the things that you saw. Now, there's still questions, desires. Chuba Hubbard had a great year, but you have Brooks that he brought in. He gets hurt. Is he ever going to be able to contribute? Because it's another kind of devastating injury. They have not drafted well. Or the guys that they do draft are taking forever to develop into players. Like, because Ikwanu now is, still playing tackle. Really good run grades according to PFF. Still one of the worst statistical tackles, though, when it comes to penalties and pressures given up. So you can still slide this guy inside. The progression is not happening fast enough. They're not necessarily drafting guys in the right spots still, I think. But I don't know that the sky is falling anymore with Bryce Young, because he showed that maybe he can be a little bit more competent, that maybe the organization won't fail him this time around.
Yeah, it'll be fun to kind of watch and see, was this a little bit more of a flash in the pan towards the end of the season with Bryce Young, or is it something that they can actually build on and get better with? I'm not willing to put my money on that yet, because too often we'll see people underestimating a quarterback, and then they exceed those expectations, and all of a sudden we think, everything is fixed, even though that exceeding expectations still puts them below that Mendoza line of an average quarterback, which is right around where Bryce is sitting right now. It is also kind of tough because there is just a dearth of talent on that team, so it's tough to feel like you can get a true full evaluation of them at this point.
I agree, but you know what? They will be a team that you have to be on the lookout for, because they should have enough cap space and picks going forward. They're not great to begin with. So once they start getting all of this in, their capital back in, you would hope they find somebody who can make this team better. But brother, we move on to the NFC West, because right off the rip, we just were wrong as all hell. But so is Vegas.
Yeah. And this was a team that just decimated by injuries. When you start off the year with CMC being sidelined and talks about, both of these, Achilles injuries and stuff like that, it's not a good way to go. And then they just have a rash of injuries all over the place. It was definitely a take a knee type of year, but it was a take a knee type of year due to injury. And that was going to be detrimental to this team moving forward kind of forever, because you have so much money invested. It felt like they were, going for their shot for the Super Bowl this year. And then everyone goes down with injury, and now you're saddled with, bloated contracts, aging players, things like that. And it could be a bit of a roughshod type of attempt at rebuilding going forward, just because, of the way that the contracts were laid out with this team. There's still going to be talent there, but there's a lot more questions moving forward than we went into the year with about this 49ers team.
They got to pay Brock. They have to pay Brock this year. They're going to have to pay him regardless, but they could franchise him, I guess. They could do a couple of different things to keep his number a little lower, but they are going to be in a tough spot because of the Ayuk re-signing. You would think that obviously he stays. Debo probably gone. They have Pearsall, so there's going to be some new blood getting more run. Pearsall, I believe, is a really good receiver. It'll be interesting to see if they make something work with Debo, if they could even potentially find a way to do that with their cap situation. But they also have a Trent Williams they got to discuss. Trent's got to decide if he's even coming back or if he's going to finally hang it up and call it a career. Because I haven't seen anything official if he's going to what he's planning on doing. But I mean, he's right there at the end of it. They just were so absolutely beat up that these 15-2 projections had never had a shot, just because they were so hurt.
Yep. I did get one pretty damn close here with the Rams, actually right on at 10-7. Same thing with that Cardinals team, 8-9. Happy about those. Seattle Seahawks exceeded the expectations from 7-10 that I had up to 10-7. We both had them there at 7-10 as well. You were obviously a little more down on this Cardinals team, and the gut feeling at the end of the season is that your prediction is still more right, even though I was spot on with that prediction, because it feels like things are just kind of in limbo there. You don't know what's going to happen, and if Kyler truly is the guy that they need to continue moving forward with. And this Rams team, your prediction of 8-9 felt right through the first several weeks of the year because they were so injured, but then they got healthy, and they have really good coaching and good offensive playmakers, and they were able to really turn things around, get themselves into the playoffs, into the divisional round even. Despite, 10-7 is not a bad year, but they're able to win the division with that 10-7 record and actually make something out of it.
We had a question that came in during that episode 183 from Vasquez. He asked who we thought might be our potential Cinderella runs. You went with the Commanders, which, man, what a fucking call it was there. I thought the Rams might have that chance to kind of get hot. When they finally got healthy, I think teams were worried about the Rams. Obviously, they win a playoff game, so they were able to make a little bit of a run, but they were just a team, once again, this whole division felt like nobody wanted to win it or nobody could win it because everybody was hurt or beat up, or 1 week it's one thing, 1 week it's another. The Seahawks had no fucking consistency. So this was a tough division to call. Most of the teams were kind of middling, but we were right around there.
Yeah, not too terrible. All righty.
My man.
And those were our predictions. We're kind of there, kind of off. Look, it was an interesting year. It felt like your really, really bad teams were really bad. And then you had teams just far exceeding expectations, really good. NFC side, it was the Lions, Eagles, Vikings just running away with things.
Mm-hmm.
AFC, it felt like the Chiefs were just destined to kind of be there despite not looking good. And they still turned out to have just a phenomenal record. And then, Bills and Ravens, those sort of predictions kind of came true because those teams are just undeniably good and always going to be in that hunt.
Yeah, I mean, so we got some of these right. Some of them are easy, though, right? We know, like you said, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Lions, we expected to be good. But when you have those storylines like your Commanders who come out of nowhere, teams that are expected to do good, falling flat on their face like the Browns, it makes for an interesting year. Man, it was a hell of a year. We got one game left. My Super Bowl matchup prediction, I had the Eagles. I had the Chiefs. It feels gross because it made sense. Those were the two teams that kind of a lot of people had pegged at that point. That they were super talented. Discussed it all offseason that the Eagles had done a really good job about attacking their weaknesses. And the Chiefs are the Chiefs, whether they get help or not. Your predictions, I remember one of them was the Texans, which in retrospect, I love because you were all in. And the Texans kind of felt a little disrespected at the end of the year. Nobody thought they had a chance. They go out there, they win a playoff game. Nobody thought that they could do that. I do not remember who you said for the NFC, if it was the Lions or not, but
yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head, but the Lions feel about right.
But man, good year. Predictions pretty close. We'll have some more predictions next season. We'll take a look at who we thought would win some awards. After awards are announced, that should be coming up here in the near future. Pro Bowl this week, Pro Bowl games, and then is it February 9th? Is that the correct date? Is the Super Bowl? Whatever the fuck that next Sunday is.
I would have to look at my calendar. Yes, February 9th.
So February 9th, we will have the Super Bowl. Oh God, stop talking. But, oh man, Evo, we got another show we're going to do this weekend. We're going to give the people 2 shows this week. We recapped this season, this episode, this weekend show. We're going to take a look forward. We're going to dive into the Lineman Lounge Mock Draft 1.0. We're going to address issues for all the teams in round 1. Should be a good time, but my man, I don't know if we got anything else. No other programming notes. Do you got anything else?
I mean, we got some head coaching movement, and we got a head coaching vacancy that's still not filled. It feels kind of funny. Do you have any thoughts on any of these new head coaches and spots that maybe we haven't talked about before?
I think Liam Cohen is an interesting hire for the Jags. I don't know why they went in that direction.
Well, because he's young and offensive minded, and obviously did some good things with Baker there. But after watching the videos and stuff of him and how awkward he is, it has really turned me off from that hire.
Yeah,
the Duval.
Oh,
Duval.
Yeah.
Oh, it's cringy. He looks kind of like a doofus more than I ever would have noticed before. Hopefully it turns out to be a successful hire for them because things have not been going good there. But it worries me. It worries me for those Jags and our boy Dackery Robertson, who's a big Jags fan.
Yeah.
Now I had to call him out specifically and be like, "Oof, buddy." Other one that's interesting for me is Schottenheimer down in Dallas. It feels like the Cowboys couldn't shit or get off the pot in firing McCarthy, even though it seemed very obvious that it should happen, which probably limited them in many ways from looking at a lot of the options out there who were already in talks with other teams. And now you're left with not bringing in a new coach. You're left with promoting one from within. And I don't know how good of a coach Schottenheimer really can be. Obviously, his dad, legendary.
Legacy.
But who knows how that's going to really work out for this Cowboys team. And at this point, it's kind of like, who was calling the plays? Why'd you move on from McCarthy? Was he really the problem? Or is this just is this kind of just a Band-Aid, get you by a little bit until maybe a guy like Dion is available or something like that?
Right. So we have thought of a few hires over the last couple of years were those kind of hires. Gannon down in there in Arizona. It feels like it could be very much that way again. It does not surprise me that the Cowboys organization is not handling their coaching search well, considering who has kind of always been in charge and runs that whole shebang. Jerry's past it. Jerry can be a great owner who spends a lot of money, but Jerry needs to take a step back and let football people do the football thing. That would be the best organization.
I don't know that he ever will. The ego, I don't think, will allow him until he's unfortunately in the dirt. And
it's
at that point,
it's going to be an Al Davis type situation.
Stephen Jones takes over. He's not doing a great job either. I don't know if you saw the press conference with everyone clapping for Schottenheimer, and then they introduced Stephen Jones, and it's dead fucking silent. And Schottenheimer has to be the one to start the clapping. He was like, "Clap for my boss, please." Yeah. Like that's the way that it feels like it's going to be. Is that Jerry Jones is going to pass at some point. Stephen Jones is going to take over, and it's going to kind of be more of the same. I don't know. Like again, it's perpetual issues there of owners not being able to get out of the way and stop stepping on their crank.
Yeah. Now, an interesting thing that was talked about, apparently, renaming of the Lombardi Trophy to the Brady Trophy. Apparently, Bill Belichick has said that it should be renamed to the Brady Trophy because he's obviously like the greatest fucking thing that's ever had. Bill, shut the fuck up. You know why Bill would suggest something like that? Because Bill's tied to that legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think there's any need to rename it.
No.
I could hate Vince Lombardi all I want because of his affiliations with this terrible team up in Wisconsin, but like it is what it is. It is the Lombardi Trophy.
It is.
It's tarnishing the name of the trophy to remove the name. Unless it comes out that Vince Lombardi was a rampant pedophile, which I wouldn't be surprised about. Then yeah, you want to move on as quick as possible.
Allegedly. I don't know if we need to throw out allegedly after that statement, but I'm just going to say it anyways. Allegedly.
I'm not saying he was. If you're saying allegedly, there's reports out there.
No,
we got dummy thick idiot conjecture.
I just heard the word pedophile, so I'm saying allegedly, so nobody gets sued.
Oh no, we're dummy thick idiots. This is all pure conjecture. That's all at the bottom of the screen. It's well known that if I happen to have thrown a dart at the dartboard and it landed on the correct spot, saying that Vince Lombardi was a raging pedophile, then lucky me. But that was just a blindfolded dart throw.
All right.
Not an educated guess based off of the team that he coached.
Damn. All right, brother. We got anything else? Any more shots that we want to take at anybody before we get out of here? Are you ready to wrap this thing up?
No, man. The last shot that we got to take is the Saints. Man, shitty organization, bad cap situation. Still don't have a head coach, and you're probably going to be left with the scraps, aka Kellen Moore. Sorry, Saints fans. Like that sucks because it feels like you are the last guy asking out a prom date, and everyone's taken. So you got to take Betty Sue, who's got 3 tits and fucking a sloppy face or something like that, and hopefully she's got a good personality. But who knows? I mean, who knows if Kellen Moore has a good personality or not? Not officially the coach yet, but it sounds like that's the guy they want, and they're obviously waiting. They can't hire a coach who's involved in the Super Bowl until after the Super Bowl. So we'll see.
Don't worry if you got to take the weird girl of the problem. In my opinion, it's the bigger ones that do more stuff. But with that, we're gonna get out of here. Drop a nice little movie quote before we wrap this thing up to offend everybody that's still watching. Guys, this is the Lineman Lounge. A couple of dummy thick idiots who get to enjoy each other's company while we bullshit and talk about sports. If you tune in, thank you very much. Time is the most valuable thing that you have. So anytime that you give some of yours to us, we are forever grateful. If you wouldn't mind, please interact with our show down anywhere the places below: X, Facebook, TikTok, call line, which is open during the show, so close now. And then lastly, but not least, our YouTube page. Please like, share, and subscribe over on our YouTube. But we are going to get out of here. Evo, give the people one last word before we see them this weekend for a mock draft.
If you want a little bit of extra football this weekend and you're not into the Pro Bowl, start looking at the Senior Bowl content. Reese's Senior Bowl, it's going on right now. The practices, it is very invigorating for you if you want to start getting into the off-season stuff, start paying attention to players. Go check out the Senior Bowl. Fuck the Packers. And Vince Lombardi might have been a pedophile. I don't know.
Okay. There we go. All right. Allegedly.
I don't know.
Allegedly.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm Mike. That's Evo. This is the Lineman Lounge. But we're going to get the fuck out of here. We'll see you on Sunday. See ya. Boop.